I think on paper he had a pretty good draft. It's hard to give a real evaluation, right, when these guys haven't stepped out on the field. But I think you can give a grade when you see a guy like AJ Brown acquired because that was a first round pick they traded for a proven, established wide receiver, and you know his production level. You know what he can do. You don't have to hope, wait, or anything along those lines. So for that pick right there, you got to give him an A.
This is Birds 365 with McMullen and McDonald here with you on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. We got our favorite South Philly bud, South Florida bud. Our favorite bud, period. It's got the good backdrop going. Rob Maaddi down there in lovely South Florida.
Central Florida, we're going to go. Central.
You consider yourself Central or South?
Yeah, I'm geographically challenged, guys. I don't know.
Tampa. He's in Tampa.
What the heck is that?
Yeah, that's Central.
It's south of you.
Yeah, right. It's definitely that's the important
exactly
part.
Right.
That's the important part.
And I believe if you drew a line across the state of Florida and cut it in half, it would also be in the south half of Florida, not only south of us. It's not Miami, okay?
Yeah, it's not Miami.
If anything north of Miami is considered Central Florida, all right, yeah, then Tampa's in Central Florida.
Let's put it this way: Rob's better off than we are in Central or South Florida. Whatever.
It's been hot, guys. It's been like high 80s, man. It's a steam.
I'm sorry, Rob. We just had a freaking 3 days of. I haven't seen the sun in 3 days.
Oh, the Phillies finally played a game, right?
Yeah,
after back-to-back rainouts.
Two in yesterday, even over the cloudy skies.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, Maaddi, we love having you on because we can not only talk Eagles, we can talk about the whole league, and we'll do a little of both these days. But we haven't had you on since the Eagles draft. Howie Roseman at his Monty Hall best, making deals prior to the draft, during the draft, moving up, moving back. How good a draft do you think the Eagles had?
I think on paper he had a pretty good draft. It's hard to give a real evaluation, right, when these guys haven't stepped out on the field. But I think you can give a grade when you see a guy like AJ Brown acquired because that was a first round pick they traded for a proven, established wide receiver, and you know his production level. You know what he can do. You don't have to hope, wait, or anything along those lines. So for that pick right there, you got to give him an A. But you look at Jordan Davis and what they were able to do, move up 2 spots to get him. Yeah, I know they traded a little bit too much maybe to go up from 15 to 13. But if that was their guy, and it certainly was, and the Ravens were probably going to take him, I know they've said they wanted him, then that's what you had to do to move up and get Jordan Davis. Yeah, there's concerns anytime you get a guy who's like 340 pounds about stamina and conditioning, and can he play a big amount of snaps, and how much is he going to be out there, and what's he going to be like in the fourth quarter? Is he going to have energy, fresh legs? Well, you happen to have other guys up there who are pretty darn good in Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, and he's not going to be counted on to be a 75, 80% of the snaps kind of guy right off the bat. They can work him into the rotation. And then when you look at Cam Jurgens and what they were able to do there and bring in a guy, I like offensive linemen from Nebraska. I like guys from now that's Central U.S. right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
I like guys.
We'll call it the Midwest.
All right, I like guys from that area of the map when you want to bring an offensive lineman in. He's got positional flexibility. He might be able to fill in at guard while he awaits to take over at center for Jason Kelsey, whether that's next year or the year after that. I know Jason was really contemplating retirement this year, and he came back, and that's something that this could be his last ride. And you get Nakobe Dean in the 3rd round at first round value. That's pretty good. Now, I know there's some other issues going on with Nakobe Dean, but when you look at the talent on the field, if he's healthy, if he's able to go out there, you got a first round guy in the 3rd round, and I think that's pretty impressive. And at the same time, too, going into the draft, they were able to get that first round pick next year. And now you get this talent this year, and you still have an extra pick in the 1st round next year. I think Howie Roseman deserves all the kudos he's been getting, which is pretty rare around draft time for Howie.
And a second round pick, Rob, in 2024.
Yeah.
Throw that in there as well. So I guess I'll start there with Howie because there's been tremendous upheaval in the Philadelphia scouting department. Ian Cunningham, Brandon Brown, we already knew. Now Catherine Raish is going back with Andrew Berry. Tom Donahoe is retiring, or, not definite, but his contract expired at 75 years old. You've been around, sort of bridge, I like to call it Howie 1.0 and Howie 2.0. One of the knocks from afar with Howie has been, how he gets along with people. Can he work with people? Can he be in that collaborative type setup that Jeffrey Lurie wants? He seems to have cleared that hurdle in the 2.0 version, or has he? Is it worth considering why there's so much upheaval all the time in Philadelphia?
That's a great question, John, because when you see so many people continuing to leave, you can look at it in two different ways. The Eagles have structured the organization in such a way that they have so many valuable pieces in that front office that other teams around the league want to constantly take away from and learn from and try to bring that culture and bring that kind of level of talent and experience into their building. That's the way that you can look at that in a positive sense. Now, if there's some underlying reasoning behind some of these people moving on, like, hey, they're not getting the power that they want in Philly, or they're butting heads with anyone in that front office like Howie, if there's some kind of relational issues happening there, that there's a possibility. Now, it's not like they're moving on they're getting promotions, they're getting better jobs, they're getting other titles. They're not moving, they're not taking demotions to go somewhere else. They're not going somewhere, and you really don't have to let them leave if it's if it's a lateral movement either, right? It's got to be something to a position that is a promotion. So that there could be some of that, John. I think when someone is difficult to work with, they don't always, there's tendencies are still there. And no matter how you may try to overcome those and probably do a better job in a lot of areas, I think when push comes to shove and some of those tendencies are still there, they may show up at times, right? And I know that there's been a lot of deep dives into the Eagles front office structure and how it works, and Jeffrey and Howie's relationship, and maybe some of those people in there who are moving on realize or recognize that they're not going to be able to penetrate that wall of Jeffrey and Howie and become part of the inner circle, that close inner circle of trust, and therefore they may have a better opportunity to have more power somewhere else. And if they get that opportunity comes along, and it seems like everyone who moves on there's familiarity where they go, right? There's somewhere, like you look at Catherine going to Cleveland, Andrew Berry, there's a relationship there. And there's always some sort of history with people. And that's how it is around the league. People are going to go where they feel comfortable to work with someone who they know. So it's a great question. I don't know right now to tell you for sure that that's happening, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's some underlying reasoning why, you get a better job offer and you're like, heck, I'm out the door.
All right. I want to ask you about another Eagles draftee, and that's the linebacker that they took in the third round. Not the third pick, the third round of the NFL draft. And I was very bullish on the Kobe Dean before the draft started. Yes, we got some late information about potential injuries that I didn't know about. That certainly wasn't emphasized, wasn't commonly known information about the injuries that he had dealt with during his collegiate career. I just judge what the player does on the field, and he was the best linebacker in college football this past year. So to get him in the third round just boggles my mind, and I think it's going to be a major addition for the Eagles. He's supposed to be a little undersized. He's 5'11". He's not as big as most linebackers as far as poundage goes as well. But I remember 5 years ago when Aaron Donald was a little undersized as a defensive tackle in the league. And there are 12 teams that wish they had called his name rather than the Rams at number 13. How big a deal is the fact that at least a couple of inches and 10 to 15 pounds, the average NFL middle linebacker is a certain size, and the Kobe Dean comes under that? Is that a reasonable reason for him to drop, Rob Maaddi, or is this the NFL just being set in their ways at what a perfect player for a position is supposed to look like? I think that a whole bunch of teams misjudged Nakobe Dean, and Eagles have benefited that. Or am I just too big a fanboy of Nakobe Dean?
I think for some teams that may have been an issue. I don't think that's an issue for 31 teams. I don't believe 31 teams are going to look at him and say, all right, he's undersized when he is that talented. And as you said, the best linebacker coming out of college, production-wise, talent-wise. Now, guys, I heard something entirely different than the pec injury. It hasn't been reported. I'm not reporting it right now because it needs more work. But I heard something entirely different about Nakobe Dean, and if true, it's understandable then maybe why he dropped a little bit.
Injury, if you're gonna
non-injury
related.
Yeah, non-injury related. So it was non-injury related, something entirely different that I heard. I haven't heard too many people discuss what it may have been, but it's something that would make it a little bit more understandable. When you look at the injury and what he said, right? He said, hey, I don't need surgery. I've talked to second opinions, and the Eagles did their homework. So maybe there are teams that still are concerned. Okay, he's coming in as slightly damaged goods, that maybe he doesn't need surgery now and he may need it at some point during the year. I can't get into all of the teams and all of their minds and all of their thinking, but I think those are all reasonable excuses for why he may have slipped. But good for the Eagles, because you end up getting a guy that talented in the third round who people wanted them to see. When they took Cam Jurgens in the second round, Nakobe Dean still on the board, and I know Twitter lit up. Eagles Twitter did. Hey, why didn't they take Nakobe Dean? And then they even said, we were thinking about it, but we're going to take the offensive or defensive lineman all day over another position in round 2. That's what they value. But he fell to him in the third round. Let's see if he can get out there. I like what the kid brings to the table. I think we all know they haven't had a linebacker, an impactful type playmaking linebacker, since Jeremiah Trotter. It's been a while, guys. So he's got those size issues, but I think you could add 15, 20 pounds of muscle. He's not going to get the inches, but if they want him to gain some muscle, he could certainly do that in the NFL. But is that going to hinder his game? Is that going to impact the way he flies to the ball, the speed that he brings to the table? I'm not sure. I'd like to see him just get out there and see how he compares to the big boys right now as is.
Rob, I want to rewind a little bit to Nakobe's teammate. We talked about Jordan Davis a little bit at the top here, but I want to delve a little bit deeper into him, because I think you in Tampa have the guy when it comes to the interior of the defensive line, Vita Vea. And, there's a sentiment in the NFL that if you're not on the field in third downs, you shouldn't be the 13th overall pick in the draft. If you're not going to be on the field in the final 2 minutes when so many games are decided and you got to rush the passer, you're not worth the 13th overall pick. Is Vita Vea worth the 13th overall pick? What you get to see him up close a lot. How impactful is he?
I think Vita Vea is extremely impactful, but those questions surrounding Jordan Davis, they applied to Vita last year too. Yeah. There were oftentimes he wasn't out there late in a game. I think against the Rams on that late in the fourth quarter, he wasn't out there on the field. Big guy, size and stamina issues when on the field, extremely impactful, someone who can alter the game. But with guys that size, you have to stay on top of them. Their conditioning, their stamina to be able to get out there. Vita Vea, I don't believe, played over 40 snaps in a game all that often last year. He was in the 30, 35 range. So he's someone who, if Jordan Davis is going to be in that mold and play that kind of Pro Bowl caliber, all pro level type of nose tackle, defensive tackle kind of play, you're going to have to accept, because that's how, if you take that size off of these guys, are they going to be as effective? If I know that size may be hindering them conditioning wise, they're going to get tired. They're not going to be able to give you fresh legs in the fourth quarter unless you have that rotational depth that teams like the Eagles have. But if you take that size off, are they going to be that giant run stuffing, pushing the line? You lose 20 pounds, 25 pounds, is going to affect your strength. Perhaps it depends on the guy, their makeup, their build. So I think Vita Vea is someone you look at as you hope Jordan Davis can play at that level. But know this with Vita, they have those issues here in Tampa with him. And that's talked about down here too as well. And I don't anticipate that's going to go away with Jordan Davis up north.
All right, Maaddi, man, NFL overall question for you, because you cover the entire league for the Associated Press, leaning toward Tampa and Philadelphia, but I know you cover the whole league. Statement made by Pete Carroll this week that if Drew Lock were in this past year's draft, he would have been the number one quarterback taken. I've seen Drew Lock. We've all seen Drew Lock. We see Drew Lock's numbers. Drew Lock's not good enough to be a starting quarterback in this league. So you're telling me you think every quarterback who is taken is going to be a bigger failure than Drew Lock in this NFL draft? How blatantly is he overrating the guy on his roster right now?
Extremely. He's also said that they weren't trading Russell Wilson a few days before they traded Russell Wilson. So I think that's Pete Carroll just hyping up his guy. Basically, that's what it is. Yeah, I take Bailey Zappi over Drew Lock, Sam Howell, Malik Willis. I mean, you don't even have to go Kenny Pickett and Matt Corral. Drew Lock is what he is, and he's a backup quarterback in the NFL, and they're going to give him an opportunity to compete for the starting job unless they decide they do want to go out and trade for Baker Mayfield or Jimmy Garoppolo. But Jimmy Garoppolo would be trading within the division, and right now still hasn't thrown a football. When I spoke to Jimmy, he said he wasn't going to throw till June, and we're not there yet. So it's hard to trade for a guy who still hasn't picked up the football yet. So I think Pete Carroll's just hyping up his guy, Drew Lock. He's probably, if you went back and put him in this draft, he might be a 7th round or an undrafted free agent.
Well, let's stick with quarterbacks, Rob, because, at the end of this sort of draft cycle, I was starting to feel bad for this class of quarterbacks. I was saying, they can't be this bad. They can't be this bad. They were crapping on them so much leading up to this draft. And guess what? The NFL backed it up. They really didn't believe in this class. There's one guy who gets drafted in the first round, Kenny Pickett at number 20. And I sort of got, and I told Jody this, Rob, I got sort of a Dan Marino chant on that because they didn't want to let another Pitt kid get by them like Dan Marino did back in the day. I think even that was sort of an outlier. And then after Kenny Pickett, not another quarterback until the 3rd round. So the NFL really didn't believe in this quarterback class. What does Rob Maaddi believe in this quarterback class?
I think Kenny Pickett's got a shot to be able to step in there and be a starter early. He's competing against Mitch Trubisky. So it's not like he's got to go in there and beat an incumbent who's been there for years. He just arrived in Pittsburgh. They're both almost on the same level playing field as far as learning the offense, learning the system. So I think he can step in and maybe win that starting job immediately. I think Malik Willis is going to be a long-term type of project in Tennessee. Now, could he assume duties in 2023? Potentially, but he played at Liberty, and the caliber of talent that he faced was a question mark for a lot of the scouts and a lot of the teams, and that's why, despite the talent and the playmaking ability and he brings all those intangibles that Jalen Hurts brings to the table: the leadership, the character, the poise. You love everything about the guy, but you need to see him do it more. He's got a chance. I like his talent and ability, and then you look at Matt Corral and you go, there's some hope there that they're able to develop him, but we know there was none of those top 5, top 10 Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow type guys. What's crazy about this draft is you still had like a week leading into it, 10 days leading up to it, where people were like, oh, maybe 4 or 5 quarterbacks can go in the first round.
Yeah.
Like
I had 3 going. I had 3.
And they go for a lot. I don't do mock drafts. It's just, I don't want to be wrong on 31 out of 32 picks. Yeah. I know I'm going to be wrong on 31 out of, but to have 4 or 5 potential first rounders, and then all of a sudden you only have 1, and then the next one's in the 3rd, and there was a lot of mock experts and draft analysts who were way off on this draft, and time will tell. But it's pretty crazy to see how the NFL viewed this class, and we don't know, guys, about next year. They say it's supposed to be a better class, but until they go out there and they play, and so much can happen between now and next year. And that's why we talk about, well, the Eagles got the 2 first-round picks, and maybe they see someone they target, and if Jalen doesn't develop, they go after him. Is that guy going to be more of a sure thing than Jalen Hurts if he's 3 years into it? I don't know yet. I don't know.
I will take a bow here because I said this quarterback class was going to stink from the previous year's draft right up until the draft. Keydon Slovis was the guy they were talking up after last year's draft that he could be
Spencer Rattler. Don't forget Spencer.
Spencer Rattler. I didn't like any of those guys. Some of us had it right. Yeah. My buddy Rick Saratella had the Eagles drafting a quarterback in the first round right up until the first day of the draft. Johnny Mac's partner, Game Day Kratz, still had hope that the Eagles were going to take quarterback. Didn't happen. The quarterback class wasn't good. I'm going to root for Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, Willis. All right, good for you guys. Have a chip on your shoulder like Nakobe Dean. Go out there and be great. I didn't see it coming into the draft. All right, do want to put this one by Maaddi. John will tell you from the day after the draft, when the Eagles, and a couple of days thereafter, last week here on Bird 365, when the Eagles added 1 safety from Southeast, Northwest Tennessee, Chattanooga, as an undrafted free agent, they really haven't upgraded the position. It's actually gone backwards with Rodney McLeod going elsewhere. It dawned on me that maybe they could get their hands on a guy like Chuck Clark from Baltimore, because they had gotten Marcus Williams, they had drafted Kyle Hamilton. Chuck Clark is a starting caliber safety who might not have a starting position with the Ravens. I did see two places this weekend where the Ravens said, we have no intention of trading Chuck Clark. Really? How you going to work with those 3 safeties in there? A devalued position in the NFL, and you got 3 guys you want to try and start. I like Chuck Clark since he took on Earl Thomas a couple of years ago, because Earl Thomas is one crazy SOB. And if you're ready to throw fists with him, you're okay with me. Were the Ravens pulling a Pete Carroll there, saying what they needed to say rather than what they actually meant to say? Is a guy like Chuck Clark going to become available?
Jody, absolutely. I heard Chuck Clark's name come up about a week ago too, as well, after the draft, and that was just someone that, if you're looking at the safety position and teams who now have the depth and the availability is there, we know the Ravens love to stop. Would they end up with 6 fourth-round picks?
Yeah,
they value their draft picks, and the Eagles you got that 4 in. What they got the 2 next year, they got the 3 in 2024, so they got some picks. I don't think you would even have to trade something as high as 4 right now. I'm not sure what the value is there, but when the team comes right out and says they're not trading anybody, they don't have. In that case, I think it's similar to the Pete Carroll. Just saying that I've heard his name. I think he's a fit. I think they also have to address maybe cornerback, because you look at the cornerback position opposite Darius Slay. They didn't answer that. And I know a lot of people are hoping that the Giants will move on from James Bradbury and end up releasing him because of his contract so they could free up space. But I think the Eagles will have some competition there with Ron Rivera's Washington Commanders, where Bradbury was drafted in Carolina several years ago. So there's familiarity there. So I think there's some competition if that happens. But those are two positions they got to look to upgrade. And I don't know that you can go into the season right now hoping that Zach McPherson develops into that guy, maybe, and then relying on a whole bunch of Tay Gowans and Carey Vincent Jr. and all these other guys and undrafted free. I like Vincent's last name for a cornerback. We know he's had some success in Philadelphia. There's no genes there, but if he could be anything like Troy was, they got their answer.
And Jody was discussing Reed Blankenship from Middle Tennessee State. Yeah, I think
it's middle. I thought it was northeast, southwest.
I think Chuck Clark.
Kind of like Florida. I don't know where Tampa is in the state of Florida. I'm directionally handicapped. I apologize for that.
A slight upgrade, I would think Clark would be over Reed Blankenship. But you
just
mentioned
a tiny
corner.
bit, guys. Just a tiny bit.
You mentioned corner. I saw recently you got a chance to talk to Dion on the AP Pro Football podcast. So everybody listen to that with Rob. Anytime I see Dion, the first thing I think about, Rob, is lockdown corner. And the second thing I think...
that's the first thing you think about?
Well,
I go Tim McCarver, him dumping Gatorade on Tim McCarver.
Yeah. Well, because I'm of the belief there's no such thing as a lockdown corner in the modern NFL. I think the best one is probably Jalen Ramsey. We saw Jalen Ramsey in high-profile playoff situations. Mike Evans, your Bucs beats him. He gets beat by Cincinnati. Jamar Chase. I don't think Darrelle Revis for Jody as a Jets guy. I do not think Darrelle Revis, Deion Sanders exist in the modern NFL. And, people expect it. Like when Ahmad Gardner comes in or Derek Stingley, people are going to expect Deion Sanders or Darrelle Revis. Am I wrong on that? Do you think it's potential to be a lockdown corner in the modern NFL?
It's increasingly harder because of the level of competition, the skill and the talent that wide receivers possess, and the fact that they're throwing 50, 60 times a game. Think about what lockdown corner means when it was Dion, when it was prime time, when it was Revis Island. Like, teams didn't throw to that side. Now think about it in today's NFL. I think these offensive coordinators and these coaches are in some ways too arrogant not to try and attack some of these guys, to say, wait, you mean to tell me this guy's going to be shut out of the whole game and we're not going to throw at him all game because there's Jalen Ramsey on the other side? And then from that perspective, from the cornerback's perspective, there's 60, 70 maybe offensive plays, defensive plays, and you're out there when you're a corner, you're not rotating in and out like a defensive lineman. You're not rotating. You're out there for every play, and to be a complete shutdown, you're not going to give up one play. You're not going to give up two plays. Like we've seen Darius Slay get beat often by DK Metcalf a couple of years ago. Devontae Adams by the Green Bay Packers come back and have great games. So, John, I agree with you. That term shutdown corner, those guys, they're not going to exist anymore just because of the sheer talent of the wide receivers, how difficult it is to shut these guys down, the volume that they're going to have to defend, more passing plays and teams coming after them. And it's hard not to give up one play. You get beat one time and it shows up at a 55-yard touchdown, and then you blanket your guy the rest of the game. You do a great job. He's got that one catch for 55-yard touchdown. It's going to be on highlights all day long. So I'm with you on that one.
Tough to be a lockdown corner. Yeah, I'm with John too. I don't know that it even exists anymore. All right, Rob Maaddi, on Thursday night here in Philadelphia, all Eagle fans will be waiting for the schedule to come out so they can get out their pen and go, Game 1, win. Game 2, Minnesota home win. All right, well, we got to pencil in a loss there and go through their entire schedule. As a guy who covers the entire NFL, do you go, all right, I can stay home for Tampa with this game. All right, I need to be in Philadelphia this game. Oh, rematch, Kansas City and Buffalo. Yeah, I'm getting on a plane for that one. Do you do your schedule Thursday night for the entire next 6 months after the NFL comes out with its schedule?
Jody, that's the first thing I look at is where am I going to be? Where do I want to be?
Right.
Where do I think I may end up? And what those, like last year, it broke down beautifully for me. The Eagles and Bucks didn't have the same home dates often. I was able to get up there for 5 Eagles games. I did 10 out of 11 Bucks home games, considering they made the playoffs, so that was nice. They played each other one time.
Yeah, they played each other.
I look at the Thursday games because I love Thursday and Monday night games because I can go to those and I'm not missing out on all the action. I don't have to catch up on the computer and on everything else. And then I look at where are they? Last year I took a Thursday to Miami. That's a hop, skip, and a jump for me. There was a Thursday in Philly, and I did a Thursday to LA. That was pretty stupid, flying out the morning of. And that I don't know. I don't want to go to LA on a Thursday anymore. But yep, that's exactly what I do, man. Forget the W's and L's. Used to do that when I was a kid, and now
that's a win.
Now I'm looking at the travel schedule. I'm looking at, all right, do I get flights are going up. Flights are going up.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that just grabs my interest every single year. You go through the team schedule. You're an Eagle fan. You're going to do that. You don't do them right down. There's 1 or 2 that you skip. Some years there's 3 or 4 that you skip, and that's how you know it's going to be a great year. If you go through it once and you still got 3 or 4 that you haven't decided on yet, that means it's going to be a good season because you think it's going to be a hard schedule, a tough schedule, one that you can't figure out as a genius Eagle fan, because we all are. I'm looking forward to Thursday's night schedule coming out. Get your travel plans in order, book it in advance so you can save some money while you're at it. Be glad to have you back here in Philly when you do. We'll try and get together for a cold one this year. Robbie, thanks for hopping on with us. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, fellas. Have a great week.
That is
Thanks,
Rob Maaddi.